In our Meet the Expert segment, we're here to meet with Dr. Bertalee Burgess, who is a consultant psychiatrist. She will offer her insight into mental illness and the treatment options that are available here in Jamaica. This segment we have with us Dr. Bertalee Burgess, who is the regional psychiatrist here at the Northeast region and at St. Anne's Bay. So welcome to the program, JNN speaking, Doc. So what is mental illness?
Mental illness is a disorder characterized by an impairment in thought and behavior. That is, the person who has a mental illness will find it difficult to think normally and also find it difficult to behave normally.
What are the types of mental illnesses?
Well, in Jamaica, the mental illnesses here are similar to what's worldwide. The main types that we would experience here in Jamaica are what we call psychotic disorders. A psychotic disorder is a disorder where the person has lost contact with reality. An example is schizophrenia. Most people are familiar with schizophrenia.
Oh, yes.
And contrary to what people think, schizophrenia does not mean split personality.
What is it?
Schizophrenia, as I said, is a psychotic disorder characterized by loss of contact with reality. So, for example, in respect of their thinking, the person might think that he or she is God. The person might think that they're the Queen of England. They might think that somebody has placed something in their head that is monitoring them from outer space. So you see that the thought process is not as it should be or would be if they were thinking in the normal realm.
So let's put it in the Jamaican context now.
Yes.
We have an individual and they start to go to church more often. Mm-hmm. In the medical circle, we call it increase in religiosity, right?
Yes.
So how does that translate into a regular person who is seemingly more religious? When do we acknowledge that something is wrong?
All right. In most cases, we do not use one set of symptoms or one set of behaviors or thinking to diagnose an illness. Mm-hmm. Usually, it has to be in more than one domain, more than one area of your life, okay?
Constellation of signs and symptoms.
Definitely. So if a person is going to church more often, but they are behaving normally in all other realms, then you would not consider them to have a mental illness. Mm-hmm. However, if a person is going to church more often and they never used to, if they start preaching on the bus and they never used to, if they start coming to work and handing out tracts and they never used to, then I would think that something is going wrong there, because this is behavior that is outside that own person's normal behavior. So it has to be measured against what is normal, not only for the society, but for that person.
Right.
Because what is normal for one person might be different. So in terms of religious services, Jamaicans are known to be very religious, right? For persons who attend church regularly, they will go to church often. But if it's somebody who never used to go to church that often, never wanted to be baptized, never wanted, and then all of a sudden they get baptized and they're preaching here, they're handing out tracts, and they're doing more than what would normally be expected of them, then you'd have to consider that they might be suffering from a mental illness.
So touch a little on the bipolar issue, because that's another entity that we see quite a lot of here in Jamaica. All
right, so bipolar disorder is what we call a mood disorder. So I spoke of psychotic disorders, right. Example, schizophrenia. Then there are what we call mood disorders. Mm-hmm. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder, as is also depression.
Sure.
All right, so those are two mood disorders.
Yes.
Mood, as the word suggests, has to do with how you feel. Feeling sad, happy, angry, irritable. So a bipolar disorder person bi means two.
Two.
Right, so a bipolar disordered person has two, right? A high and a low. The low would be the depression, and the high would be what we call mania or hypomania. So I'm going to break that down. Mania or hypomania has to do with a certain pattern of thinking and behavior. So a person who is manic or hypomanic would tend to think that they have lots of money.
So they behave as if they've won $1 million.
Yes, they're not only one, they would tell that they own all of Jamaica, right? You know, so they behave as though they have lots of money or they own a lot of property. They will also talk non-stop. They will also spend a lot of money. They will even run up exorbitant bills go to
Spending sprees.
yes, go to places and take out credit for a whole lot of things. Just to give you an example, there was a particular person who went into a well-known pharmacy in Kingston one day, and she started to purchase things, okay? And she purchased. She was using a credit card. When she went up to the cashier and they started to check, when the cashier became aware that something must be wrong, is that when the bill reached $1 million.
Oh my
Right?
goodness.
So at that point, no, the cashier said, no, something is wrong. I mean, who usually comes into a pharmacy and spend $1 million just like that? So sometimes because they think they have a lot of money, and sometimes because they feel that this is urge to spend, they will put themselves in a lot of debt.
Right.
So that's another manic symptom. So we spoke about talkativeness, excessive talking, excessive spending, the grandiosity, thinking that they are who
Something
they are other than who they are. Also, they sometimes have what we call flight of ideas.
Yes.
They are talking about your blouse now, which is a blue blouse, and they say, oh, what a pretty blue blouse you have on. And they say, boy, the sky is so blue,
Yes.
and the blue dress is something that I would really like
So
to wear.
there's no association.
Yes,
between-
just-
they
just-
move from thought to thought very quickly.
Just minimum connection between the
Right.
thoughts, and so they move. So we call that flight of ideas. In addition to which, they sometimes engage in what we call risky behavior.
Oh yes.
They will have excessive sexual activities. Anybody who is available and ready to do it,
Right.
right? They will gamble. They will drive. They are drivers. They will drive very fast on the road and recklessly, and so we call that set of constellation of symptoms increase participation in behavior that can cause harm to self or
Sure.
to others, right?
Sure.
In addition to that, they may also have what we call psychotic symptoms. So apart from having those what we call manic or hypomanic symptoms, they can also behave as though they have lost contact with reality.
Is that when they start hearing voices?
Yes, they can. That means that they can hear voices and they can have delusions,
Sure.
right, which we spoke of already.
Yes. So I want to thank you, Dr. Burgess, for joining us today on our Meet the Expert segment on JNN's Paging Doc.